There we are. We're live, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Everyone.
Nice to see everyone. Hey.
Hello. Hey.
Here we go.
We are so excited for today's community hangout. Thank you so much for joining us, and a huge warm welcome to the talented ladies at Chutzpah Design.
Absolutely.
How are you guys?
Hey, guys.
We're doing so good. We are. It's only 8 a.m. here, so we have
You're on the coffee.
ready to roll.
Yeah, this is kind of more towards the end of the day caffeine, where you're flagging a little bit and need the pickup.
Let's be honest, there's something else in your cup rather than coffee. Isn't it? It's 4 p.m. there. You're already tuning out.
Yeah.
That warm beer that you guys all drink, what's that called?
Ale.
Ale, yeah. Ale. I haven't got that
Boddingtons or
one. Sleep, yeah.
It's like this
Yeah.
big.
I'm going for an ale after this, actually. I've got
Yeah?
an American friend visiting. So, yeah, I'm taking him down a pub.
Yeah. Yeah, when Ali was over, our designer in the States, I took her out for a pint and a pie at a pub. Yeah.
Oh, a meat pie,
You're gonna be still be done,
yeah.
pie and a pint. Yeah.
Yeah. True British experience.
Absolutely. It had to be done.
Fish and chips.
Yeah. Ooh, fish and chips.
So we've got a few people showing up. Let us know in the chat.
Yeah,
where
where are you
are
from,
you tuning
guys?
in? And while you're doing that, I'd love if the Hood Sisters could perhaps introduce yourselves. I'm sure everyone knows who you are, but for anyone living under a rock, just a little bit about yourselves.
I put a few slides in our keynote too about kind of a little bit about our studio, but I'm Amy Hood. I have the longer hair. That's how you can tell who I am. And I have the knuckle tattoos.
Cool.
So that's how you
right.
can tell. She has prison tats.
And I'm Jen Hood. I'm the one with the shorter hair and the lower voice. And yeah, I'm the other co-founder of Chutzpah. We started Chutzpah about 8 years ago in 2011. Was that, 8 years ago?
2011.
And we pretty much started it because no one would hire us. It was not glamorous. It wasn't like, we're going to be brave and start our own agency. It was like, oh shit, it's expensive to live in Orange County. All the stereotypes are true. It's like, how does anyone live here who's not a plastic surgeon or a real estate agent? So we were like, okay, let's just start contacting everyone we've ever known and just like blast that we're like willing to literally design anything. And we did design anything. We designed map catalogs, flyers for like industrial engineering stuff. Like it wasn't really like super glamorous, but whatever, you know.
And then we just did passion projects. And I think that's how we kind of found our niche and found like our core audience, was by making the kind of projects that we wanted to start getting paid for.
Awesome.
And that's kind of when it all changed. But yeah, we said yes to everything. And I'm really glad we did, because we learned a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
And I love that you're siblings as well who work together, because I love my brother
that's
to
lovely,
bits.
isn't it?
I couldn't work with the guy.
Everyone says that.
Well, I did. Yeah. I mean, I used to run an agency with my sister, so I've kind of been there and done that. And it's good fun, right? It was good.
Yeah. I think of us like a mob family almost. Like we're grooming our little sister to also be kind of like a junior designer and office manager, and she's incredible already.
Awesome.
So
That's really cool.
very
Amazing. So what are you sharing with us today?
So today we're going to be talking about proposal decks. And a proposal deck is basically, it's like a glorified quote. And it's a way that you can like wow a client before they've even paid you for any services, and really like garner trust. And if you have a good deck, it is a game changer. Our friend Mackie Saturday gave us that pointer, and he's an amazing designer who did the Instagram logo. He worked at Chermayeff Geismar Haviv, a huge agency that did like Chase Bank logo and some of the biggest logos you've ever heard of, the EPA in America. And he told us one day, he was like, you guys be charging way more for your logos. And I was like, how? And he was like, it's all about the decks. And so we've been,
which really means it's all about communicating value and communicating story in many ways as you can. So why wait till the proof stage to do that? Like show that you can do that up front, and that'll like separate you from the herd.
Amazing.
And not only that, but it becomes scalable, because when you put in the initial work, you can reuse it in some form over and over again.
Like the standard documentation you can take to all the meetings, but slightly tweak. So you've got a good grounding, and you've got you've got the talk down already, and you can just give it again, but tweak it. Yeah,
that's it. You've got all your jokes ready that you know.
That's it. Yeah. Oh, here it comes.
Yeah, the tested, tried and true jokes. But it's true. Like having templates, it saves you time and energy. But then to the client, they think you spend hours and hours and hours.
And to be real, you still spend hours. Like I do all of our proposals mostly. For us, we kind of like divide and conquer certain tasks, and still to make a really good proposal that I think is really targeted to them, that they can feel addresses because the key points of the proposal that we try and do is to show them that we understand their problem very succinctly, so that they know, hey, we listened, like we get it, we're like on the same page with you already.
Sure.
And then we kind of propose a solution without giving away the farm, just like a very vague solution, like you need X, Y, and Z. We're going to do that with this stuff. Here's relevant work. And
we'll
so
go through that.
Yeah, and we'll go through that more. But like, it does take time. I think that's one thing that when you go out on your own or you do freelance work on the side, that you really underestimate early on, is how much time goes into just non-design stuff. And
Absolutely.
now we're very like okay with the fact that it's 50-50 and oftentimes less design work.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's getting the work and winning the work is often the hardest part of the work. Really. Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like this is an area that
you have to start to enjoy is like the courting and the, the strategy of it all.
I think you can enjoy it. Yeah, I mean, it's
one-offs.
Yeah, it's probably one of the most important, enjoyable things about running this business. Really, is the strategy and the business and the branding. It's just brilliant fun. The marketing,
and just building those relationships as well.
Absolutely, it's great.
Yeah. I love that stuff.
I listened to you guys' marketing tips for selling products last night.
Oh, really? Oh, awesome.
I loved it, but I was trying to get tips for how to do this one today, and I was like, go straight to the horse's mouth.
I don't listen to us. No, there's people much better that we have on.
I also like cornhole, so we're good. We're
good. So before we jump in, would you guys agree this is something that we see all the time? The majority of designers seem to struggle at and not really have it down that well.
Yeah.
That documentation piece, that proposal piece, certainly the more successful designers like you guys that we know, they really, really execute well with this. But I think for the masses, it's quite confusing, maybe a bit overwhelming. They don't know where to start. I sense like a real big problem out there when it comes down to this stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, even just like when we subcontract people, we subcontract a lot because we're such a small boutique agency. We flex depending on the project. So almost everyone besides 4 people are subcontracted on our team. And so even when designers will send me proofs of what they've done so that I can, give them feedback for the bigger project that I'll present to our clients, I'm like, how am I supposed to give feedback on this? Like none of the pages have like option A, option B. There's no organization. Everything's just kind of thrown in there with no context, So just even seeing that side, I'm like, is this how you present to your clients? This is fascinating. Yeah. So I just have to write back and be like, hey, next time, can you do it like this? But I would say that is a place where people are lacking, is taking the time to sell the idea. I think people often assume that good design speaks for itself, but unfortunately it doesn't.
No, yeah, for sure.
So sure.
Yeah.
So for the couple of hundred people that have joined us today and all the people who are going to catch this on the replay, pay close attention, get the notebooks out because we're about to jump into your presentation.
Really important stuff.
I know this is going to be super helpful there.
Okay, here we go.
Awesome. So I'll share my screen.
Incredible.
Okay, share. And then let's go over here.
Are you guys normally up at 8 a.m. like working, by the way?
Jen's normally up way earlier than I am. I will say that.
I like to get a few hours either before or after regular hours. And then I'll take off. I obviously don't work like 10 hours a day, but what I'll do is I'll schedule it so that I have a few uninterrupted hours without emails. And I don't even answer emails till like 11 a.m. That way I've had like 4 good hours. And it's like people will survive not getting their email answered.
Sure. So easy to get distracted, isn't it?
It is. And those are my keyest hours of when I'm calm and it's still hopeful and naive about what I can achieve.
I like Jen's just spent 2 hours meditating, people.
This is in a Zen place.
And I Amy, to just eat breakfast and watch Great British Baking Show. That's my jam. TV.
You're talking about the British Bake Off?
Oh my gosh, I love it.
You've been watching that?
Nice.
Oh, that Paul Hollywood. Isn't he dreaming?
His blue eyes of steel. I just want his approval so badly.
Honestly, my mum's in love with him as well.
Oh. I'm like, he, with a look, he just knows the depths of your soul. But anyway. So yeah, this is what we're talking about today. 7 tips to a successful proposal deck. And we've got our social handles here at the bottom if you want to tweet us questions afterwards, or also I think we'll have time afterwards to do Q&A, right?
Amazing.
Yeah, there's going to be some Q&A and we'll absolutely let everyone know where to find you near at the end as well.
Amazing.
Awesome, perfect. So yeah, a little bit about us. We kind of told you about how we started Hudspah, and basically Hudspah is just Uh-oh, that didn't show up. Uh-oh. All right, we'll just jump to here. We are a small boutique branding agency. We're in Orange County, California. You might know us from our reality TV shows. The Hills, The OC was a show from here. The Real Housewives of Orange County. Do you guys watch those in the UK?
Yeah. We have.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's all fairly true of how it's kind of crazy. But yeah, that's Jen. Like we said, Jen has a shorter hair, and this is me, Amy. And we have an awesome team. And this is just a quick look at some of our work. If you're not familiar with us, this is our Instagram page. We love Instagram. It's like such a fun place to like connect with the community. And it's crazy how small the design community is. Tom, I was tweeting with you and some guy, I forgot his name on Twitter today, but it's really cool.
Yeah, I saw that. He was like, this is crazy. I've just been following you guys and now you're doing a design cut school. And yeah, small world, right?
It is. It's like once you know a few people, like you kind of are It's kind of like, one it's 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon, Yeah. Get on Twitter. Like, I feel like a lot of people are on Instagram and Facebook by default, but there's so much like just noise and like competition for attention from the people you want to talk to on Instagram. Whereas on Twitter, I feel like your design heroes usually like barely have anyone talking to them. It's just such a more passive group of people. I mean, like Twitter, like in order to be on there and engage, you really have to have something to say. So I think it just weeds out a lot of people. Yeah.
And some people can be a little bit annoying and mean, but I think if you focus it on the right people, Twitter can be a huge tool to like meeting and talking with people you really look up to.
Yeah, to connecting with your design heroes for sure.
Definitely.
Cool.
Well, here's our first step. Okay, so step 1 to an awesome proposal deck is to gather all the info. So you have to go on a fact-finding mission. And I'd say that's the best way to start any project at all is, you're gathering inspiration, you're doing research. And it's funny, we do a lot of research with our client. We'll go in and we have this like huge document full of questions that we'll ask them. And we usually try to do it in person, but we'll ask things,
But for the proposal stage, we're obviously doing a little bit like less version of like the big questions.
Yeah. So we'll call the client when they reach out and they say someone emails you and they say, hey, like I'd love you to do a logo. Usually they'll include like a little bit about their business. And actually, if they just send an email that says, hey, how much does a logo cost? Usually I kind of know that's a red flag that I don't want to work with them.
Sure.
But if they give me a little bit of info and it sounds interesting, I'll hop on a phone call with them before I quote them. Because a lot of times, they'll give you a budget and it'll be a lot higher than what you expected. And so instead of shooting yourself in the foot and just giving, a standard rate, it's good to kind of get some key things from them first. So I like to get them on the phone and just get them asking questions like, who's your audience? And often their audience now is not who they want their audience to be, after this design project. So also figuring out who do you want your audience to be and figuring out their products, how much they go for. I even like to ask really silly questions like, what's their favorite song? What keeps them up at night? Domino's or Pizza Hut? I don't know if that translates in the UK. Do you guys?
Totally. Yeah, totally.
Do you guys have delivery pizza now? That's so funny.
Yeah.
Everybody
For sure, yeah. All the same stuff. It's all here.
Yeah, we've had that
forever.
forever.
It's all there, yeah.
That's so funny. We have an older British friend, and he said that back in the day, it was like you did not get pizza delivered. And I was like, what a sad no.
No, we've got all that stuff, but we just have pie, chips, and gravy as well.
Pie, chips, and gravy. Okay, I'm putting this
we're not like New York where you can get food delivered at 2:30 a.m.
Right.
Well, not where I live, definitely not. No, you might get a duck fly past the window or something.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. But yeah, I mean, I find that sometimes the silliest questions get the conversation rolling openly.
Sure.
And I think that's the key to getting the most out of your client is getting them to relax and letting them know that you're just a human. So often just, those silly questions can uncover interesting opinions or just things about your client that you can then use when you create your deck. Because really, like we said at the beginning, it's all about the human element. You're trying to connect with them on a human level and let them know that you understand them and
you can be trusted.
Sure.
Totally.
Building a relationship.
Yeah, that's absolutely it.
So in person is best, obviously, if you really want to get a sense for someone. But this is the caveat. You kind of have to do a little bit of research on the phone and via email first to see if your time is really warranted to be spent really a lot with a person, if it's really worth it to go through this whole proposal spiral. Because these more in-depth proposal decks, they're definitely for more of like whatever your small, medium, large projects are. They're, definitely to help you land like bigger ones than you're probably getting now. And so it can really suck a lot of time out of your schedule if you're not careful. So if you think it's a really big project and then you haven't landed a lot of them, then definitely try and get on the phone, get that personal element in, maybe even meet in person if you think that would help to really get a good idea of what this person's project is and how to quote them. But for us, a lot of times the phone still works to get really candid responses. But definitely like when you catch someone on the phone or in that verbal element, you're able to get a lot more out of them as far as like just real information about their business that you can use to gauge like what their value points are. So I like to ask them a lot about like, what's your product? Get a little bit of information on what it costs. If you ask them things like, what's your marketing budget? Like things that they're usually comfortable sharing that gives you an idea of how much money they think they're willing to spend or what kind of like range they might be working in. You know?
Yeah.
Do you find as well that with a phone call, you can cut out like 5 to 10 emails worth of information and back and forth because you can just cover it all in one conversation?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And this, not to sound like sneaky, but you can catch people off guard. Sometimes you can say like, how much money do you have to spend on this? And if they had that in an email, they would think, oh, I probably shouldn't tell them. They might try to gouge me or,
yeah.
or I'm trying to save half this budget, you know? And, but if you ask them on the fly on the phone, they might just tell you, you know?
Sure.
So I think that a lot of times you can just get a lot more candid answers. And a lot of times the in-person thing is mainly on the really big projects. We've had a couple like really big projects where they want to meet the team. There's a multiple interview process, you know? So in those situations, you know, that's necessary to land like these bigger, like, you know, 6-month long projects of like big rebrands or big overhauls. Yeah. But otherwise the phone is pretty great. It still gives them a friendly voice. It still allows you to let them know, like, hey, personal things about yourself, like I'm a Lakers fan, or I love these movies, like I'm a human just like you.
So you can kind of filter how much time you need to give each client to land the project, or whether it's even worth landing at all.
Oh yeah. And that's the great thing about being on the phone is they'll tell you a lot, and you'll get the sense of like, oh wow, they didn't have as much money as I assumed, or like
it's a lot, right? Yeah.
Or oh, I see that this scale of this project is much smaller than what I'm looking to take on right now.
Sure.
And you know, it's not impossible to get out of things even after you've gotten on the phone. I think a lot of people think, oh no, once I get on the phone, I'm stuck. Like I have to like quote them and be willing to take on the project. But a lot of times once I talk to someone, I'll be honest with them and say, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm probably out of your budget range. And really at this phase that you're in, you'd be better spending your money on a smaller, like a freelancer who doesn't have the overhead and studio costs that I have. They'll still give you a great product, but you'll save a lot more of your money to keep developing your product, your service, your business. And then I'm more of like your 5 years down the road when you're really
aspirational. Totally.
Have you guys got a freelancer friend that you pass?
We have tons that we refer to.
Yeah,
that's the best position where it's like, here you go, like here's someone that's not quite right for us.
And it's really interesting to hear sort of the way agencies develop, because a lot of these, the way it's run is the same between agencies, because it is the way you kind of have to run an agency. You know, it's stuff you can implement with any agency.
Right. Yeah. I think the business principles across the board, a lot of times, you know, apply. Yeah. So step 2, after you get the information about the client over the phone and you really get to know a little bit about why it's important, you're going to mirror all that information back to them in the proposal deck. So you're going to show them, hey, I listened. Not only did I listen, but I was able to synthesize your thoughts down into the clearest, most distinct statements that show you that I really know how to wrap my head around what you want us to do. So you're just really trying to help overcome their fears of the unknown, you know, because fear really definitely drives people to do things. So meaning like things like try and keep you at arm's length, like fearful to share things with you that will help you work with on the project, a lot of weird stuff. So you just have to help get over that by showing them like, hey, we're on the same side. I get We're all humans. We're just big meat bags of emotion, all of us. Like,
so also this is a chance to uncover, you know, things that you've inferred about what they need, what that they maybe haven't even realized themselves. So they might have told you what they think the problem is that they want you to solve, and you might actually come back to them in your proposal and show them like, hey, I know you said you think you only need like a slight facelift on your word mark, but if we fix your word mark and your icon and your, you know, identity system don't match, then you've just created another new problem. So here's what I suggest we do. So a lot of times you're actually like rephrasing the problem for them, and that's okay. You're the professional. They're looking for that. So we're going to show you just a little bit of a proposal deck that we have. And let's see here.
So is this one that you sent to an actual client?
Yes. So this is one that we landed for Fanhood, which actually was just featured on Brand New. Which was actually just featured on Brand New under consideration. So if you guys want to go check it out, it's on there. But yeah, it's a basketball brand, or sorry, a sports brand. They have a newsletter and an online presence where they share like in-depth articles about not just like the game, but the business of the game and stuff like that. So when we quoted them, we definitely wanted to reiterate what we had talked with them about on the phone. So this is that stage we were just talking about, reiterating the project goal back to him and writing it out in a way that shows that we listened. And then over here on the right-hand side, we also make, you know, we make a case for why a strong brand identity is important. You know, if maybe it's a client that doesn't quite understand design and understand how much that can really, really help their business and their bottom line. So yeah, so that's kind of a real life look at how we do that. And then we even have like this nice little intro page of like, here's a little bit about us. But that's that.
Very cool.
Cool. Do you find there's lots of clients that don't understand the value of branding?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, luckily now that we're at this bigger phase in our career where we're working with slightly larger companies, and thanks to companies like maybe Apple, I feel like a lot of people understand the word branding now, which before it was like, what's that? And
Sure.
I think they understand that, quote, design-driven companies do better. Everyone's heard it. Even the Kardashians have their own personal brand, you know? So I think that's been a real benefit, is just the bigger knowledge of those topics. But even so, I think people just don't know how much it can cost. They don't have any gauge, you know? So I think they go into it with very unrealistic expectations of like, oh, it's just going to be, $1,000 to rehaul everything, right? It's like, well, so.
That's where our job becomes creatives, but also educators.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you how this works.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the benefits. That's where those benefits come in so important, because if they can see the value, you know, then they're going to go for it.
Oh yeah. So I think that is it. Just showing the value. That's this whole deck's purpose, is showing why you're worth what you're trying to get. We have a lot of friends who come to us and say, hey, I'm not quite getting the rates that I feel like I'm worth. Like, how do I do that? And it's always education, and it's always communication. And that's what these decks are also.
And professionalism. If you guys come across as professional, you come across as big brand yourself, then your inherent worth is going to go up, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So then we show applicable work examples. That's the third phase of your proposal deck. So often the person that you're pitching to isn't the final say in the project. Maybe you're sending something to, an art director, but they have to get approval from, their higher ups, or, the client, or you're sending it to an account manager at a design agency, and they have to get their art director to sign off. So we like to make it easy for people to sell us to their bosses. So these decks are a great way to do that. And if you show relevant work examples in your decks, it's not just a number with, process. You're basically making a little mini website in there for people to be able to go to, or for the person you're quoting to show to their boss.
Nice.
So, because they're probably getting quotes from 3, 4, 5 different people. How are they going to remember what they saw on your website when they visited it like 2 weeks ago? And how can you be sure that the person they're handing this scope to and this quote to isn't just going to look at the number instead of comparing the number to the work in the context? So you have to put it all in one place for them.
Yeah. So yeah, we like to show relevant work, and we like to make sure, like if we're quoting, like for Fanhood, if we're quoting, somebody who's in the sports world who's going to do an online newsletter, we're making sure we're showing work examples that have to do with newsletters, editorial layout, and sports. We want to make sure he knows that we get his industry.
Sure.
So, and we also like to make it really sure the scope of the projects that we worked on. So it's like, if we didn't do the logo, we want to make sure that the client knows that. It's like, hey, we just did editorial layout, this, and this on this project. That way it's always super clear.
Cool.
And so just look at one of our real life templates. This is something that we sent to a company that was working in the motorcycle space.
Go to the top.
And so we have this section
at the beginning. So
Oh, that was really cool.
Yeah, we have this section called proof, and it basically just says, here's some real life example of work that's applicable to you. And then it's, you know, obviously if they're in the motor industry, they know Red Bull. So this is a huge like way to say like, hey, we've done this before with a big company.
Sure.
And then you can see down here, we say, here's our scope. This is what we did: logo system, lettering, postcards, event backdrop, sticker pack, animated GIFs. And if we go to the next page, we've got more relevant work. They wanted something that looked retro. This was one of the projects that was very retro leaning.
So yeah, if you don't have a big name project, that's okay, as long as you have work, or hopefully you have work in the same vein as the aesthetic they're looking for, and you can show at the very least the same kind of scope.
Yeah.
I think one of the questions I was quite keen to ask you was how you upped to the really big clients, because obviously you've got some really big clients and it's those stepping stones, you know, and how you personally as an agency managed to get there.
It's all people. So whether it was online or just people that we met in person or previous clients speaking highly of us to other folks, it's been almost always word of mouth. So Red Bull is located locally, and we had a few friends that were friends with one of the guys on their marketing team. I
don't think that's how he found out about
Oh, really?
Stuff. No, he was on Instagram. I hear this a lot, that a lot of art directors and marketing directors are on Instagram a lot looking for artists, and he just contacted us through our DMs. And I told you I thought he might know local friends, but we didn't actually have any friends in common.
We just found that out later, that he knew a lot of people we knew. So yeah.
Amazing. You must have been like,
yeah.
So I mean, there is a power to social media.
Absolutely.
As annoying as it is. I think that to have a strong presence there is helpful. Even if you don't have the numbers, just showing that you have the quality work, you know, and making it easy for people to find who are going there to find things. So yeah, for sure. So yeah, number 4 in making a really awesome proposal deck is outlining the process and the deliverables. So this is key because this lets them know that you've got everything in hand. It also saves you a ton of time, because when me and Jen were sending out our proposals initially, we would get the same questions back every time. How long will this take? You know, what's the process like? What does a first round proof look like? So instead of, you know, having to answer the same questions every time, we just started building that into our proposal deck. And it makes them know that you're thinking of the questions that they have before they even know to ask them. And that garners trust, which is huge. Yeah. And, it also lets them know that, you know, they don't have to like jerk for the wheel. They don't have to backseat drive. Like you've thought of it all.
Do the processes give them more value as well? If you can say, right, we've got all these processes and we will do this for you and this for you and this for you. And does that help justify larger budgets for bigger companies?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's where you're able to show all the work that goes into it. Because a lot of people say, oh man, I feel like they just don't understand the value of what I'm trying to present. And they don't. That's why you have to show just how much time it takes. It's kind of like when you go to your mechanic and they tell you everything they did to your car, and it's like, yeah, you fixed it. That's all I wanted to know. But they're trying to let you know.
But hang on a minute.
That $600 bill.
Did that. Look at my knuckles.
Yeah, exactly. So they're trying to make sure you're not thinking they just kind of put a part in and called it a day. So I think it's a lot about just demystifying the process. So that's a huge part. The next step is giving a rough timeline. This is just like stage 4. It's just letting them know you've got it under control. This isn't your first rodeo. And I think that's most of it, is just letting them know you're a professional and you've done this before, and they can trust you, because a lot of designers don't relay this message well. So if you can let them know, I'm gonna turn stuff in on time. I know exactly how long it takes to get this project finished on time so we can meet your deadline. That's huge. I feel like we get a lot of repeat clients just because we turn stuff in on time, don't you, Jen?
It is kind of crazy. Like, reliability is a huge factor. But if you're doing a project or quoting a project that you're not as familiar with and you don't know a timeline, what I like to do is at least give like maybe a first few stages of the scope, give like an estimated timeline for those. And you might not know like for the whole complete project how long it'll take, but you could say, hey, we can do the discovery in this amount of weeks, and we can do like a first round proof in this amount of weeks. And then after that, it'll just depend on what your changes are and stuff. So, you know, we'll keep that a little bit more open-ended, but just giving them something that they can kind of relate to their team so they can get their mind around how much it might take
Totally.
Yeah. Cool.
The next step is obviously brag a little. I feel like people want to know that you know what you're doing. So it's like if you don't have like the accolades of like some 30 under 30 list, that's okay. You're just trying to like show them, hey, my mom's not the only one who thinks I'm good at this. Like other clients think I'm good at this. And the way you do that is by just having testimonials. So if you've won a design award, that's great. You can include that too. You can say, and you can also include logo carousels. That's another great way to just instill trust and let people know, hey, I know what's up. I know what I'm doing. Big brands have trusted me. And sometimes you don't even need the big brands. Like Jen was saying, like if you can just show a trusted local brand, maybe if it's a local client, that's just as powerful as like a big name on your client roster.
Yeah, it's that credibility.
It is. Yeah.
I love that you mentioned a bit about your mum. We actually have a community member, Paul Hallam, who's a kids book illustrator, and he's really talented. He's had some great clients, and one of his case study testimonial things is a picture of his mum standing next to him, and the quote just says, Paul's a very good boy. And he's like interspersed it with all these real high profile case studies.
Absolutely hilarious. I think Andrew Hockrattle did that as well. He hosts Creative South, and I love that kind of joke because it's like, of course, all of our moms, like they're like our biggest champions.
Sure.
But, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But yeah, then I feel like then you're set up, you've actually set the stage and you've said, this is why I'm worth what I'm worth. That's when you get to the price, is at the very end. You don't start with a price. It's like, take me to dinner first, right? So that's how you get the big bucks. So now that you've proven the value, you can present the price. And we like to outline the payment plan as well. And we have a business mentor, and he often recommends that we give people 2 options in price.
And some people recommend 3. They say, but it depends on how big of a project you're quoting. Like if I'm quoting a really big project, I'm not going to give them 3 different scopes. Like it is
what it is.
It's excessive at that point because there's already going to be pages and pages and pages. But if it's a smaller scope and I know that it's a small company and it's harder for them to make decisions, they have a more limited budget, I might present 2 or 3 options that give them, exactly what they asked for, a little bit less if they're looking to save a little bit more money, and then what I think they actually need with things that will really help, get them started, and that also, that third price, the highest price is the one that's like a small jump up, but they get so much more value for it.
Sure. Carrot on the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we can go through like a whole project proposal now if you wanted, Aim.
So here's back to that motorcycle brand, the deck that we sent to them. And this was the relevant work stage. And then here's that process stage we were talking about. And on this one, it was basically just logo design. So like a logo system with secondary marks and icon and word mark, and then color and typography. So I just showed them, okay, first we start with the discovery, then we do logo design, then we do color and type. It's super simple. And then I like to even break it down further of like, here's the process of the logo. We do a mini discovery for the logo. We do all these initial concepts. Here's how many revisions you get. And here's what the final artwork scenario looks like. And then I even we started getting a lot of questions about, hey, what does a first round proof look like? So I started including that. Here's like 2 examples of a first round proof for Cult Leader, it's a music venue brand in Australia. And here's, 2 other first round proof examples from a screen printing company. And so they're able to see that they're getting quality proofs from the get-go.
Nice.
And then for color and type, I show them, hey, like we're going to get you a brand book at the end of this. It's going to be a cohesive look at how to apply type and color.
And that brand book, that looks nice. That looks great. Really nice, sexy.
Yeah. And it's so funny because it's just a mock-up,
Yeah, but you know what? That's just, it closes that imagination gap, doesn't it? And you look at it and think, ooh.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the funny thing is like we don't even print brand books generally.
No, who does, right? Just send a PDF like everyone else. Yeah. Like have a little, what goes to print, It's
the power of mock-ups.
But as soon as it's in print, that's worth more, isn't it? Because print, even if it looks like it went to print.
Yeah, and I'd like to start doing that. I feel like a lot of my friends, like I think Sidecar Focus Labs does that. It's like a little gift at the end of the project. It's like, hey, we printed off a one-off book of your brand book for you. Nice. And I feel like it's such a nice little touch. But
that's a really lovely thing. Yeah, I've got some brand books from some big clients back in the day, like PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I've still got them on my shelf at home because they're just such lovely things. Yeah, really nice.
I pay for them now, like those standard manuals. I have one. I have the NASA one, and I think they're so fascinating to look at, and so we show them just kind of like a brief look at a beautiful brand book that we've done in the past. And just like you said, these mock-ups, they create so much buy-in. Like just these 2 pages, this page of the logo round ones and this page, it usually really sells it for them.
It's amazing that that's so much more exciting than the logos, just because it looks like something that's physical.
Right. Absolutely.
It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. And then here's a look at how we do our timeline page. We just do a Gantt chart. It's really easy. And we show like, here's what we do in week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. And like Jen said, sometimes if a project is really big, we'll just quote, like, we'll just do this for like the first primary stages. We try not to quote anything out farther than like 1.5, 2 months, because you just can never tell at that point. It's like, take it in phases. So we'll usually say like, here's phase 1. This is what you can expect for this phase. And that's to let them know, what's up.
You mean, we try not to estimate the timeline.
Sorry, the timeline.
Do you break the payment plan down into those phases as well, or align the two to help it?
There you go.
Oh, there we go. That's wondered.
I'll actually show you a different one, because on this one, it was more of a buyout scenario. So it was like, we did a look at, basically we concepted, and then they were going to present it to their board, which was like a big board. And then if they approved it, there would be a buyout. So that's how we did that.
And we really only do that scenario for really big companies where they know they're paying a lot extra just because of the visibility and the risk. And so like 20th Century Fox, when we work with them on like concepting for their title treatments, it's the same, where there's just a flat fee that's still very fair for just exploring. And then if it does, because there's just so many approval stages, if it does make it to the very end of all the different people, then we
reduces the risk for you guys and for them, I guess, as well. If they've got things they can actually take away and take to another agency because you've sectioned it off and it didn't quite work out, but
yeah, so it's specific situations call for, but I would say that that's really only like 5% of clients do we do that with. Usually, it's just like, it's just a straightforward quote of like, this is what it's worth, And I think something to remember, that we work a lot with logo branding, identity, and so that's on a sliding scale of value based on who the company is really and what they sell and how big their audience is, like how much visibility they have. So.
Cool.
And I think the cool thing to note about these templates is like you said, Tom, like if you get one, that's what you use. Like this is the exact same template we sent to the other client. We just updated the colors and the fonts, and the applicable work. So it becomes very easy to present something that's very beautiful. And so you can see
like a bit of work up front, obviously.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really polished looking. But
honestly, this deck took us forever to make.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, it's why we sell it on our site, is because it's so hard to find a good proposal deck template, and it's so hard to make one as well. So we started selling ours, and it's been a huge moneymaker for us, just because people don't have the time a lot of times to go this in depth. So having at least a base to start with and then kind of make it your own is nice.
Sure.
This is kind of how we break it down. And then we always make it really easy for people to get in touch with us with any questions. We have our information on every page, and we make sure that they're able to get a hold of us super easy. So,
and like we customize the cover photos and any sort of in between photos that aren't personal work to images that apply to to whoever we're quoting, to their industry or to them specifically. So if they have good imagery already out there, I'll use their imagery. I think there's a big part of showing them that it's custom just for them, right?
So we are all about that. So I don't know if you guys saw, I posted about this on my Instagram yesterday, but as a company, we hate being generic. We can't stand it. We always want to run away from that and just go as personalized and specific as possible. So last year, we worked with about 400 designers who sell with us, and I recorded a personalized Christmas video for each one of them. So it took about
you were just
4 hours.
Took you forever, didn't it? Your voice was at the end of it.
And like I completely lost my voice. And it's so insane. I could have just done one being like, we appreciate you, Merry Christmas. But it was like, one for each person. That is how much we believe in like personalization, because it works, right? It really works.
They will be your champions for life after that.
Sure.
I feel like. And I think it's why we've never had to do much like heavy biz dev, is because our clients do the work for us, because they recommend us to all their friends, and we've just kept leveling up by
That's brilliant. Just
it's
word of mouth.
similar
It's amazing, isn't it?
That we almost have to stop just like taking what comes to us through the awesome like loveliness of people referring us, because I mean they're referring similar clients, and really if we want to grow in the level of client, at some point we actually have to stop taking on what just naturally comes and make time to go after what we really want, right?
Yeah.
So at a certain point, like your business is doing well in a good way, and you actually have to think like, okay, I've gotten to this point. Now let me think about what I actually want next. Like just because this is what I'm getting doesn't mean this is what I always have to do, right?
Yeah.
So you do always have to be proactive, even when things are going great, to make sure that you're actually like growing and getting where you really want to go.
Yeah,
amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are you guys down for some Q&A?
Let's do it.
We've got some questions.
And everyone, now is the time, because Amy and Jen, they've been amazing showing up today to bring all this value. First of all, before we get into Q&A, leave a little emoji in the chat, your response to what you've just seen with these tips.
And this is properly
I'm
amazing value.
Fire emojis.
Everybody
right now.
needs to be using this in their business. They really do, because it's so useful and so powerful, and it will save time, and it'll make you be able to charge more money for your services. You'll get more credibility. You'll get bigger clients.
I will say it was a game changer for us ever since we started using this specific proposal deck, because we've tried probably 3 variations before this one, and they were usually much simpler, or one of them was laid out like they were going to print it on a piece of paper like a regular book. I was like,
or like a resume. Like
Yeah.
it was very text heavy. And when we started breaking it down into very manageable chunks per slide, that made a huge difference. It was like piecing the story, even though we weren't there. The minute you look at a page that has like I can't look at a cover letter with more than 3 paragraphs. It makes
it's too much.
And that's what a lot of quotes look like. It's like, who wants to read that?
For sure.
Right, the small print. It's like, here you go. It's like Paradise Lost.
Yes.
It's like, no thanks. Look at all this great feedback. Everyone's loving it.
Yeah.
Jackie says, so valuable. Fire.
Yeah.
The studious glasses on.
Yes. Kissy face. Love it.
It is great tips. Yeah. Less copy. Definitely.
I took mad notes, Drexel says.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, all of this is
so did I. That's why I was so quiet.
In the Learn section later on, so you can come back and watch again.
Yeah. All of these hangouts are in the Learn section at Design Cuts. So without further ado, let's get into some Q&A. And remember, guys, you can actually you can vote questions up and down. So we're going to try and tackle some of the top ones first. We've got one from Lewis here who says, how do you know how much to charge? Do you worry about remaining competitive or outcharging yourself out of consideration? So basically saying, are you going to price yourself out of contention?
Yeah, it's really hard. I feel like you can't price based out of fear, number one, which is really easy to say sitting here. But what I would say is, this is what you do. I'm going to say a cuss word, so prepare to cover your ears if you don't want to hear.
It's all good. We've had Dina Rodriguez on the podcast, if you know her. So
okay.
Don't worry. Beep out the whole thing. We literally said to our audio guy, just stop beeping out on the podcast because your fingers going to fall off.
It would be a full-time job with designers. We have such potty mouths. But I think it was Humphrey Bogart's agent said you need to create your fuck you fund, which is pretty much if you save up 2 months worth of operating expenses for your business or for your freelance, then you don't have to price based out of fear anymore. You can start thinking, you know what, it's not the end of the world if I don't get this project. I'm going to price this one higher than I'm comfortable with because I need to start testing my limits and do what I think I'm worth, not what I feel comfortable with, right? Which is often 2 different things. So definitely save up your fuck you fund. And then you don't have to, throw all of your eggs in one basket and like risk it all on every quote. But like once a month, I like to quote more than I feel comfortable with and just, turn it up. Now, a good way to know if you're pricing too low, if you're overwhelmed, if you're busy, if you have way too much work, you're pricing too low. That's the easiest way to know. If you're stressed, if you have too much work, turn up your rates by 10%, 15%, and just start seeing.
And another one, if you're never, ever, ever hearing no, you're pricing too low.
100%. And to be honest, once you start quoting the bigger clients, you're going to hear no a lot more. And that's okay. Sure. We started getting panicky, like, oh shit, we're not getting like hardly any yeses anymore. It's like, yeah, you're not doing one-off logos anymore. It takes a lot more to sell that. And there's a lot more like stages and hoops to jump through.
Not to mention that at that stage, there's so much client interaction. At that point, we're doing 60-40 client interaction design. Sure. And so at that stage, we don't have time to take on that many clients anyway. So we can't even take on that many yeses. So it's good. It's keeping our plate manageable.
Yeah. And so a lot less people are going to be able to afford your rates once you get to that little, like the middle tier and like the top tier clients. So don't be worried if a lot of people say no to your prices, as long as you're getting enough in the door. Now, if you go 2 months and no one has said yes to your prices,
that's too long.
Yeah, it's way too long. Either you're overestimating the value of your work, or you're just not communicating the value of your work. You just need to learn how to show why it's worth what it is. Or you just have to maybe come to terms with the fact that maybe the style or the type of work you're doing, it just doesn't garner the kind of money in that you want. Early on, we did a lot of what's called fun work for friends, which looks really cool. But to be honest, like, the kind of people who like that work were people with smaller budgets who were doing passion projects or small businesses. And we still love doing that kind of work. But we realized, gosh, we're never going to get like a 60 grand, rebrand budget on these kind of like fun restaurant brand, small shop brand kind of styles. So we're like, we need to start showing a little bit more of our corporate work, because that's the kind of stuff that we can get bigger money on. Not like it's all about money, but we need to weigh out the money we get in so that we get a little bit more on this end with corporate stuff, so that we can do the fun stuff and not, flounder and die. So
sure. Yeah, I think it's important to, well, if you want to make money, you've got to focus on an industry that can afford to pay you the money you want to earn.
Yeah,
totally.
That makes sense.
I do think a lot of people make the mistake there of they're like, it's like follow your passion regardless. And I think that there's something to be said about like, there's 24 hours in a day, right? If you do corporate work for just 2 out of the 8 that you're working at your job, that's a win. Most people decide their job.
Yeah. And I don't think that's like selling your soul or anything. That's just thinking commercially about running a business.
Yes. I think Andy Warhol said like making money is the most interesting art form. And it's like,
quite interesting. Running a business is, that's part of it. It's such a thrill. It's great.
It is. And I think people often think that it's being like wanting to make money and wanting to have a nice life is like a 4-letter word. It means you sold out. And it's no, you can have both. You can do both. I still do tons of passion projects because I have that liberty, because we've done corporate work. So we really value our corporate clients, and we try to treat them really well so that they come back and yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so I'll move on to another question. I hope I'm going to pronounce this right. Richili asks, what's the #1 mistake you see people making with their proposals?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a really good question.
No wonder you guys voted that up.
Yeah.
I think it's just keeping it simple.
You mean they don't keep it simple?
Yeah, they don't keep it simple.
Yeah.
It's text heavy.
Oh, right.
Sure.
No visuals. We're designers, aren't we? Like,
and yours was really like visually interesting. It was beautiful to look at. It's going to get you excited.
People literally, I can't tell you how many people write back and they're like, this is the most beautiful proposal deck I've ever seen. Yeah. And I'm like, a client saying that it's like, and we work with a lot of agencies, so they've seen a lot of decks. So that lets us know that, okay, this is working. This is a step above. We're showing that we were going a step beyond. And even like our proposal deck that we have on our site, like people are constantly writing reviews like, oh my gosh, this was a game changer. Like I've landed so many projects. So it's like, it really makes a difference if you design the proposal deck to show that you're a good designer.
Sure, yeah.
I think the other problem people do is just like, just a proposal as like a one sheet with just like a scope and a price. That doesn't really communicate the relationship, the value, the why,
Yeah,
sure.
I'm really sad because we're nearly up on time, and there's so many questions
because this is like so valuable.
Do you guys mind if we maybe do some quick fire? Because I'd love to get to as many people as possible, and then if you are up for it, we would love to get you on the podcast for like a proper lengthy chat. So yeah, does that sound good?
Yeah, totally.
Incredible. So Alexa says, is this being recorded? Yes, it is. It's going to be in the learn section on our YouTube, etc. We then have Elisa says, if you're just getting started, how do you balance the take all the work and do everything with the research and considering if they're actually a worthwhile client?
Well, in our proposal deck download, the product, we actually have a questionnaire at the beginning that we recommend people go through. So it's just a lot of quick questions you can ask to get a good feel of if you think that's the right client for you. But I like to ask a few questions via email before I get on the phone to save the time. So
and it's just like, what's your budget? That's the first one to let them know if it's a joke or not. And then timeline, if they say I need it in a month, I know that it's not the right project for me. So asking those really easy questions that let you know, oh, this person doesn't really understand the value, then you won't put all the effort in.
Qualifying. Love it. We've got one from Charlene as well. If you want to take that, Matt.
Charlene says, what do you do or what do you ask when a client isn't sure of a direction?
In the proposal stage?
Yeah, I guess so. So if they're almost, you know, they know
they're not
need
sure
help.
what they want. And I think you kind of did touch upon that because you said you do a lot of exploring in terms of what they want at the start.
Yeah, so we'll pretty much just ask them like, what's not working? Like, what are you unhappy with? What's not working? And then from that, just based on like my ideas and my intuition in the industry, I'll say, this is what I think you need. And then after that, let's test it and see how it goes. And then we can either add on X, Y, and Z, or, you know, A, B, and C. So it's just giving them proposed scopes that you think they need versus maybe what they exactly asked for, showing them options, and then telling them why you think they need the other thing.
Yeah, oftentimes they don't know how to articulate why they don't like it or why something's not working.
That's
so you're
so
kind of like playing psychologist.
Yeah,
you're asking them like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about typography? What about color?
Yeah, don't be afraid to lead it. Lead the project because they want you to. They don't often know what they need or why.
Of course.
Love it.
Yeah.
We got one from Rachel as well, who says, do you write all your own stuff or do you work with copywriters? And we know Rachel, she's lovely. She actually does copywriting. So then maybe she's done learn something.
Or do it with copywriters.
Copywriters are so hard.
And my email address is.
Yeah, put your email in the chat because copywriters are so hard to find. We do our own because they're hilarious. And we have a pretty specific like style that people often, they'll say, oh my gosh, who did your copy on your site? And we say Jen. So Jen is,
So I do a lot of it, but I would say, like, get used to writing. If you're not comfortable writing, start a business journal. No matter what, start a business journal. I think it's and just a personal journal. You can mix both of them, but it's hugely beneficial, and it'll help you uncover things that you know about yourself that are just instinctual that you can then start putting into words. It'll help you become a better speaker, a better writer. So definitely keep a journal and just practice writing. It's important.
Yeah, I really liked your copywriting and your proposals. Actually, it was very conversational. It was very human. It was kind of like fun and funny, but professional.
Yeah, so important, definitely.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, shout out to Rachel. She's in the chat. Rachel actually, side note, does some copywriting for us and also for Lauren Hom. So talented lady. Charlene also has a question.
Charlene asks, how many projects at a time do you take on?
Oh, too many is the answer. Too many. We're like those people who are like just excited about everything. Everything's going to be the next big project. We have a hard time saying no. But I think reasonably, I usually have like 3 to 5 projects on my plate because we're doing branding, and it's just so, you know, exhaustive, and there's so much you have to invest. So,
and then same for me. And me and Amy both spearhead not our own, but we'll spearhead projects, and then we tag each other in for critique, ideation, exploration. But one person owns the project just so that there's accountability, and so that it's easier to just like make like a final decision.
Cool.
So together, and then between our team, Arturo Jimenez, who's amazing and helps us with production work and other things, like,
and our little sister Brittany, who does the project management. We probably have maybe 20 projects on the board at any given time.
But they're all paced, and some people are on the slow track and some people are on the fast track. So, but when you get really busy, that's a good time to start scheduling out. So we do have people who are scheduled out a month and a half, and even then it's kind of like, oh crap, how are we going to get all this done? But that's what nights and weekends are for. We'll sleep when we're dead.
There's a quite an interesting question which has popped up actually, because who doesn't fear this as a designer?
Oh, this one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. How do you deal with clients who have bad taste, and it hasn't been in a meeting where you just sit there and think?
And we have had to tell clients. It's funny because like they think that because they don't like something that's valid, they'll just say, I just don't like it. We'll often tell them like, I'm sorry, but you're not the demographic.
Yeah, perfect.
Let's do it. And we'll often say like, let's get a user test group together.
Yeah, isn't that powerful?
Yeah. And I think you have to push back. And we'll often say, didn't you hire us because we're millennials? We're the demographic. The demographic is 18 to 35-year-old women. You're a 45-year-old man. I think you got to press this on this one.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. So the audience is a powerful tool, right?
Yeah.
Look at them and say, look at the audience. Are you the audience?
Yeah. Well, and another huge key phase is the discovery phase, which is your research phase. Before you do any design, I think it's so crucial to get on the same page about who the audience is, what they care about, and to get on the same page aesthetically with the mood board. So they have to settle on all 3 of those things before we design anything. That way we know that we're aesthetically on the same page, and we don't have to get that surprise when we've sent a proof, because that's not the time to decide what you all like aesthetically, or to define what modern really means. Modern minimal, which everybody apparently
Love it. Question from me, actually. And I don't want to stir anything up here, guys, but you seem so in sync
For
Do you
sure.
ever
Yeah.
get competitive where you're like,
Oh yeah.
I got a really cool project, and it's like, no,
Yeah,
I did as well.
check my brand design out.
Yeah, every project. That's why we don't work on projects together as much as far
Okay.
as both designing concepts. One person spearheads and does the design, and we both ideate, because it's just too. We just get too competitive, and it's like if they
Sure.
choose Jen's concept over mine or mine over hers, like it's just too much. So it's like
Although
one.
we do rough concepting together,
We-
but as far as
yeah.
like the actual design execution,
Yeah.
one
Oh,
person
cool.
owns it. But I think our competition actually makes us better because I'm always like,
Oh,
damn
sure.
it, she thinks she's better than me. I have to keep hustling to like keep this. Like,
That's brilliant.
Hold on,
here, I think, that keeps
this is so.
totally.
Sorry to cut you off, Jen. This is so perfect. Adam just asked, "Who's the funnier hood?"
Oh, Jen.
No, but you
Funnier.
no, I'm more funny off the cuff. Amy makes the best tweets though, so
Nice.
At Amy Hoodlum on Twitter.
Diplomatic. Diplomatic.
I feel like I've seen you get asked that somewhere before. Have you been asked that on a podcast?
We get asked it a lot. Jen is definitely in the book, our book, Freelance and Business and Stuff, which if you are looking to freelance or looking to learn more about like business, is a great resource. Jen, all the funny stuff Jen wrote. So
I love that. And you didn't even fight it, Jen. You're like, yeah, I'm hilarious.
Yes.
I
Like,
like
I just kind of like, hey, I'll take it.
That's so good. Guys, I think that's all we've got time
yeah,
for.
that was amazing. So good.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
It's just the two of us here. The team are out there right now,
Yeah,
but we're going to clap it up for you. That was
Yeah,
awesome.
cheers, guys. That was absolutely awesome. I'm sure everyone will agree that's just so much value, and so much to take away and help people. So thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thanks for having
super
me.
generous.
And
with your
come
time.
over to the UK, pie chips, gravy, maybe ketchup.
Do
as well,
it.
if
I
you're feeling
want
gravy.
to do a narrowboat
Thank you,
cruise.
Mel.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
if anyone has a design conference in the UK that needs 2 twins,
Wow. Do you know what? Design conference in the UK could well happen.
Just saying.
Yeah, just yeah.
Cool. Everyone, let's show some love in the comments for Amy and Jen. That was incredible. Drexel says I'm clapping you, even though you can't see me.
Yeah. Oh, thank
Um,
you.
And while we're doing that, yeah, we just linked up in the comments, but we're going to add a little button
Amazing.
to your website.
So yeah, go and check it out. Get your hands on that deck because it will be super useful.
So,
and yeah, shoot us any questions that you didn't get to say in the chat on Twitter. We love talking with everybody. So
Amazing.
you do, yeah, absolutely. So there we go. Shiny green button right below this. And I know you guys sent a few links over earlier. If we could link them up in the chat, team, but otherwise do go dig around on their website. They got some incredible books, proposal templates, all kinds
For
of
sure.
awesome
Very
stuff.
valuable.
Every single person watching right now needs to head on over there before they go and do anything else because it's a treasure trove of value.
It is.
thanks,
Amazing.
guys.
Thank you very much. And so just so nice to geek out with brand designers. It's just the best.
I know. Yeah, I know. I was
Another
looking for
brand
a-
geek out.
Yeah, that's
It's healthy.
amazing. And are you guys coming? You guys are going to Creative South this year, right?
Yes,
We are.
absolutely. We'll be there. Tickets already
In-person
bought.
beers. Let's
Yes,
do it.
absolutely. We'll be there.
Likewise.
That'd be awesome.
Cool. Thank you guys.
so much, guys.
Thank you
Perfect.
so much.
Take care.
Okay, take
Appreciate
care.
it.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
See you. Bye.